It's my absolute honor to introduce one of the most dynamic, interesting, and experienced individuals in our industry who is going to have a conversation with arguably the most experienced, interesting, and dynamic person in the industry. Sam Kolias, Chairman and CEO of Boardwalk Brit, is going to lead a conversation with Mr. Brit Smith, who's the founder of Homestead Land Holdings. Brit graduated from Royal Military College in 1940, and that's where it starts, and the next 75 years are extremely interesting, and I'm going to pass that over to Sam. Welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a lifetime honor, really, to be with you, Brit, and we met about 20 years ago in the 90s, and I got to get this question out of the way right away. Are you 50 years old yet?
I don't know. I'll have to ask my mother. My birth is uncertain.
I'm so honored to be here with you, Brit, and share your life and inspiration with our entire industry. Our industry models after you, and you and your team and family have been a huge inspiration for all of us. And so I just can't say in words how honored I am, and we especially all are here to be with you and have another lunch discussion. And over the years, we have been very blessed. Our kids have all attended Queen's University, and so we're in Kingston all the time, and when we are, we're together, and we have had so many memories and discussions and luncheons, and this is going to go by so quickly, and everybody's going to want to know why we haven't asked this question or that question, and so I'm sorry ahead of time. It's going to be a very quick hour, and I'm just going to try to get right in it right away. I was with a friend earlier, a mutual friend of ours, Carolyn, who asked me to ask you this question, and I've asked you this question a long time ago. We want to know what you eat for breakfast. Like, how do you do it? You're so healthy, energetic. What do you eat for breakfast?
I hope they're all that easy. Oatmeal with a little bit of olive oil mixed into it. The Mediterranean diet, keeps me young. And some maple syrup for being a Canadian, and then I cut up half a banana. And that's the secret of longevity, is half a banana every day for the potassium. And you don't have to put the thumb screws on me, Sam. I'm going to answer these readily, In fact, your trick will be to shut me up. I am a lawyer, I love the sound of my own voice. Next question.
And you you eat that every day, that oatmeal's every day?
Pretty much, yes. If I'm up in time for breakfast, yeah.
So let's go before you were born to your parents.
My memories are very thin.
Where are your parents from? And
my parents are both from Manitoba. And my father came to Kingston to practice law, and my mother came with him, of course. They liked Kingston, so stayed. They say I was conceived in a canoe off Garden Island, which is out in, only Westerners would take a canoe over to Garden Island. The harbor is very rough, so I'm lucky to be here, I guess. And
wow. See, that's something new I've never heard of before, and I'm so happy.
Don't tell that. I just keep that quiet. Just between you and me.
Just between our close family and friends.
Yeah.
And talking about your parents a little bit more, and just wondering, what was the most inspiring things you learned from your parents, either your mom, dad, both? What was the biggest, most inspiring thing that you learned from your parents?
Well, considering our reason for being here today, Sam, in the summer of '36, my father bought an old stone double house with 10 fireplaces in it that had been the viceregal residence back in 1842, and Kingston was briefly the capital of the United Canadas, Upper and Lower. And my job was gutting the coach house and stable at the back. So I learned a little bit about building apartments and converting this old coach house. The amazing thing was that the partitions I was taking down were southern yellow pine, which had come up from thousands of miles away. The secret was that, as any horseman knows, horses crib and chew the wood on their manger or the partition, but they won't eat southern pine because it has turpentine in. So there's something new for you today.
Well, talking about that experience, were there, and can you remember any automobiles when you were doing this?
Oh yes, when I was a little kid, most of the delivery wagons were horse-drawn, and in the wintertime we had no snow plows. The horses would build the 3 tracks, one for each runner and one for the horse. And the teams had to have sleigh bells on them, so pedestrians walking along, the sleds were silent in the snow. Oh God, I'm going back into ancient history. So I won't bore you with that stuff. Anyway, there were horses, but few cars.
Few, but mostly horses. Now, do you? Can we share your parents' phone number that we learned about last night? Because I thought that was very interesting.
Well, 384 was the office number, 179 was the house number, and the police number was 19. So my parents had told me if anyone tries to break in here or anything, the police number or the office. So
2-digit number.
2 digits, 3 digits for one,
3-digit phone numbers.
Only a handful of people had telephones in those days. God, I must be old. Yeah.
Well, you've seen so much change, and this is what I'm trying to share with everybody is how that change has formed who you are and how your roots have created.
I'm a Westerner, really. My parents.
From Manitoba.
Yes. My mother was actually born in Moosomin, which was the district of Assiniboia prior to 1908 when the province of Saskatchewan was. So I'm not quite as far west as you, but I do have some Western genes in me.
It's a big country and a very diverse one, and your family is a big part of your life. And can you share with us some things about your family, like your brothers, sisters first, and then your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
Thank you. Well, my 3 sisters were all very well behaved, and I think that I owe a lot to them and their tolerance for me as the brat of the family.
Are you the eldest, youngest?
I was the eldest.
The eldest.
And my daughter Sheila is here today. One of my 2 sons, Alexander, both of whom have been deeply involved in Homestead and largely contributed to its success. And my granddaughter Holly, the next generation, is here as well. So who have I missed? Anyway, all these people at that table.
So trying to understand where those deep-rooted family values originated, can you share with us where the deep commitment to family comes from and where that is rooted?
That's a little tougher question than I'm really capable of answering, because I'm not sure the roots are. In those days, the kids just grew up by their own, playing hockey on the road with the frozen horse ball. Now they are trucked all over eastern Ontario to scheduled hockey practices and scheduled games. There were no organized sports for kids in my day. There was a vacant lot here and there in most cities, and we'd knock a baseball around, kick one of those big oval footballs around, and hockey in the winter. So my family values were pretty much standard for everybody in the community, rather loose family groups. So they always wanted to know where we were, but we'd skate over to Garden Island on the frozen harbor, but my parents wouldn't worry about me now. But when my kids were growing up, if one of my kids went out on the harbor ice, I'd be having fits, so I knew they got home safely. So standards change. I guess I was expendable in my generation.
So freedom came very early in your family, and do you attribute that with just a different era and time? And
Largely.
And do you think that is something we can't do today, given our society? And what are your thoughts on the way families were raised when you were raised versus today? Is there anything that we can learn as family to do something better to raise our families?
I would say let them make their own decisions more than they do today. Too many of their activities are planned for them, and they lose their independence. That would be my big one. But of course, in my day, the world was a much safer place, and our parents did not worry about us. Traffic was not a hazard. Most people in my generation just quietly grew up knowing who their parents were, and going home for meals, but maybe to sleep. But things are completely different now. In fact, when I was 15, I went down to the armories and joined the militia without even telling my parents. They wouldn't let me in before I was 15. But when I came home with puttees and spurs and a bandolier and First World War uniforms cut down, my parents nearly had a faint, had a fit. They thought I had joined the army, which I had.
Which you did, and really, thankfully, your service, along with so many other veterans that have served and really served with your lives, which is the biggest way to serve, is through your life. And how did you get inspired to really risk your life for our freedom and for the benefit of all Canadians today? How did you come to that decision? That's a big decision.
Well, I think I just followed the path of least resistance. My mother's roommate at the Toronto Conservatory had a son at RMC named Jack Eaton, and he would come over quite often on Sunday afternoon for tea. And I greatly admired him, and I just thought that RMC was the place to go. And the fact that I was a reasonably good football player helped me get in despite my stupidity. And I always thought that RMC was a good road to professional soldiering, or failing that my fallback would be to the law, because several lawyers in my immediate circle were RMC graduates. And I always thought that the life there were more sports, quite a different thing now. And then, of course, the war came along, and the next thing I knew, I was in England in 1940, and I had a wonderful girlfriend, Sally Carruthers, who was 18 when I got engaged to her in November of 1940, before I went overseas. I think, well, I'll be back in a couple of months. She didn't see me again until she was 4 years older in November of 44 when I came back in the hospital ship, being quite badly wounded in France. So I was so lucky to have my kid's mother wait 4 years for me. And they were lucky too, or they probably wouldn't be here either. So.
Well, I'm really happy.
They have another father.
Really happy we're sharing your service, which is such a huge contribution, and you're very modest, and you wear a little red ribbon.
Thank you.
And can we hear more about the little?
Well, on the
red,
70th anniversary of the liberation of France, Monsieur Hollande, the President of France, awarded Legion of Honor rank of Chevalier to a couple of dozen in each of the liberating armies, particularly those who had received a decoration and a wound, and who had actually done something besides chase the girls in the liberation of France. So I qualified on all three counts. And so I get to ride in the Paris Metro free as long as I'm wearing my Legion of Honor medal. Thank you for mentioning that, Sam. I'm very proud of that.
Such a huge honor. It's again, it's difficult unless you're in discussion with your family on your service. And what a huge commitment that was, and an experience in that. How you described it last night would be a great way to share with everybody your experience in France, serving for all Canadians. How would you describe that?
It was very harrowing, and if you were lucky enough to be born with very little in the way of nerves, it helped. And as an artilleryman, my job was to work with the forward infantry, and the challenge was to persuade them that when we were firing shells over their heads that not to get too close, or the odd one will fall short. And when that happens, then you have to explain that their own stupid fault for getting so close to the barrage line. But I think, generally speaking, we were just a band of brothers, to use a corny cliche. Right. We had all been training, or most of us, in England for 4 years. We were fairly well-qualified professional soldiers. But unfortunately, we were up against extremely good professional German soldiers. My 2nd Canadian Division in Normandy, we were up against the 12th SS Panzer Division, known as the Hitlerjugend. And most of them were very tough, young, experienced fellows. Some had fought in North Africa, some on the Russian front. So we were really outmatched, and we would take 3 casualties to their 1 in most of our battles. So the day I was wounded, we lost 1,110 men in the 2nd Division alone, killed and wounded. But that was, lost long ago. And
well, what's amazing though is there's so much challenge with a lot of information today on post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's a lot more information how big of a sacrifice service is for our freedom. And not only did you survive such harrowing, as you describe it, life experience, but you've thrived through it. What can you share with everybody that helped you not only survive but thrive through that? What was it with that experience that has molded who you are today and contributed to the huge success that you have as a father, a husband, grandfather, landlord, businessman, lawyer? Can you contribute or share with us?
That's quite a long question, Sam. I don't remember. I don't remember the whole thing. But
what was it during the war in your experience that has helped you be who you are?
All right. I would say the comradeship. After 4 years training in England and fighting in France, we were very hardened professional soldiers. Mm-hmm. And our values of comradeship, in combat, you're dependent on the people around you, and you have to accept the fact that the person next to you may be killed, but you can't break down and mourn. You have to keep on fighting. And you develop a certain shell around you which inures you to dramatic tragedies, which in later life, things that happened in the war are overshadowed, are not as serious as things which you might consider as, I think if I can't find my other shoe, that's really, in the morning, that's very serious, although my wife usually says it's under the bed. But I think that my values there were, particularly in leadership, that as a captain and troop commander, I had to, even if I was terribly concerned about what we were about to do, or actually were doing, I had to show complete confidence for the men under my command and the infantry around me. You have to be Mr. Cool, and don't worry about those mines. Right. They probably aren't armed anyway, until I triggers one. And leadership can be trained, can be learned in most cases. Some people just are never going to be leaders. Some people are born leaders, but most of us acquire the skills of leadership through instruction, intuition, and practical application. So I guess my military service taught me leadership and got me in a position where I could assemble a good team who did only actual work for me in my career as a real estate developer and as a lawyer. And I think what it comes down to is that teamwork is the essence of success. And I'm not just here to say how to succeed in business without really trying, but it comes naturally, if you have the instinct for team leadership and for inspiring people to do work for you without any real justification except very small salaries, the rest follows naturally. So I guess that's it, my teamwork and training in leadership.
Well,
Is that anywhere near your answer?
It is, in that I hear all the time from your team what an honor it is to be with you and to work with you. And I am wondering if you have an opening, because I would just love come working for you.
I was hoping to go and work with you, Sam, because you have always been my ideal. Anybody who can come up with the name Boardwalk for a real estate company has immediately attracted millions of monopoly players as potential buyers. The great triumph of the industry, you're naming Boardwalk.
That's what always happens when I kind of sway off course, is it always ricochets back. And so Homestead definitely is a much better name because it's more synonymous to our industry, homestead. Can you share with us where that name Homestead came from?
Well, I was trying to get something folksy and not too dignified. But then when I went searching names in the, Richard, what do we call that index of names for corporations? There are very few left that had any real bearing. So Homestead was one of the ones not taken. And there was a Homestead Oil out in Alberta, and there was a Homestead Bakery down in Florida, about a town named Homestead in Florida, but I just struggled along anyway.
So just before Homestead, though, you were a lawyer. You still are a lawyer.
Yeah, 50 years.
You practiced law for 15 years.
50. 50 years.
50 years?
48 to 98. But when I was still in law school, this was my hobby, building a.
Wow.
It's full time with most of these people here, but with me it's just a hobby.
So
I might want to buy one now or then, but mostly I build something. Or when I was going to law school, Sally and I lived in a basement apartment at 215 Collins Street, foot of St. George, place called the Cawthron Mansions, and was terribly poorly laid out. So when I should have been studying for my law exams, I was redesigning this apartment. And one holiday, I bought a lot for $1,000. It was zoned for an 8-plex. I designed a little 8-plex, went to a mortgage broker and arranged a National Housing Act mortgage for $24,000, which was $3,000 a unit, and built an 8-plex. And Sally and I would drive down on the weekends and poke around in the building with a flashlight. Oh, and one other good thing there, I was browsing in Aikenhead Hardware on Temperance Street one time, and I saw a Porter Cable skill saw with a 7-inch rotary blade. And I bought that. I'd never heard of it, and nobody else had either, and gave that to my carpenters. And wow, those carpenters could zip through a pile of lumber that high, and about a quarter of the time they cut it with a crosscut saw. So the advent of the machine age was perfect timing for me. And I think I just hit my microphone, didn't I? I won't.
So it was really out of necessity, an eye for developing better, more functional living homes.
Yes, I saw room for. Thank you, Sam. I saw room for improvement. That the industry was in its infancy then, and so I came in with a blank slate. I could get away with building any damn thing, pretty much. Even today, I try, but doesn't work quite as well. So, and of course, I have Alf and his Scott and Francine down there who actually do the real work and make the plans and find the money.
How long were you a lawyer when you first developed that eightplex?
Oh, I wasn't. I was still in law school.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yes, yeah, in the basement apartment on College Street. And Sheila was only I think she arrived our second year in law school. The beauty of the basement apartment was that Sally put her in a little harness and tied a clothesline in the back where put her out the window to play. And the line was short enough so she couldn't get out of the streetcar tracks on College Street, which was important. And meanwhile, I was trying to learn to be a lawyer. And as I went along with my law practice, every morning I would stop for half an hour at the construction site. I built several 8-plexes and then a 12-plex. And before I knew it, a close friend of mine who was a structural engineer said, we got to switch over into reinforced concrete and elevator buildings. So I did and built a bunch of projects under the National Housing, the CMHC Limited Dividend Program, where they would lend you more. The secret all the way was to borrow more money than it actually cost you to build the building. And that's getting tougher to do all the time, Sam. They're really tightening down now. So it can be done, but tricky. CMHC have really tightened the old purse strings. Anybody from CMHC here? Please take note. And God bless CMHC,
Absolutely.
by the way. Yes,
Now we're talking. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen for CMHC. Absolutely.
And the real estate agents, God bless them too.
God bless the whole industry.
And the mortgage lenders, all of you, bless you and keep you.
What about
and my colleagues in the business?
What about our resident members, our lovely and precious resident members? How did you practice law with a growing amount of resident members that live, eat, breathe, and sleep with us 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? How did you balance between the law practice and the resident members and the construction, especially on the resident members? How did you?
Well, my kid, as I said, we used to just put the kids out to play and hope they'd come back eventually. My construction time was usually the first half hour. Kingston is a small town, so no travel time. I would answer the questions, make the decisions, and as an ex-soldier, I knew how to make up my mind quickly, right or wrong, as long as you pretend you know what you're doing. This is a very important thing. I can't tell you. You put together the greatest empire the world ever seen.
No, you can tell me, absolutely.
Oh, no. Sam, Boardwalk, we all look up the Boardwalk as...
The only reason if we do something right is because we're copying you. So
you're so smooth, Sam.
No. Keep sharing the information. This is why we're here.
I am so honored to be your friend.
No, it's...
Any other questions, or can I go now?
The couple more questions. We have a little bit more time. The focus started off in Kingston.
Yes.
And how many years did you stay only in Kingston?
I think about 1988 thereabouts. My daughter Sheila was practicing law in Ottawa, and down there visiting her, somehow it came up that there were buildings for sale, and one of my artillery friends, Jim Barker, had a son, Christopher Barker, who was a real estate agent in the multifamily thing. And he said, I've got a couple of buildings I'd like you to see that the owners have gone bankrupt, and it's a great opportunity. So I picked up several buildings in Ottawa at about 2/3 of what it would cost me to build them. This seemed such an obvious thing. If you could buy them for less than you could build them. I think that's still true, perhaps.
Sheila, you're a big inspiration, because if you never went to Ottawa, Homestead probably wouldn't have went to Ottawa.
Quite likely, yes.
And so our family went to Kingston and Queens. It's too late. Went to Kingston and Homestead's all over already. And
things went so well in Ottawa. I put together quite a large portfolio, a good team there. And then one day in the Globe and Mail, I saw an ad for some buildings, 900 units thereabouts, on Erskine.
That's the
And
Mercer
I phoned Greg
portfolio?
Khalil, and Greg Khalil said, well, this is really something for an institution, not for you, Mr. Smith, but
Oh, wow.
I have a free day, so if you want me to show you around just for the hell of it, I will. So Greg very kindly gave me a tour and took an offer from me on it, and nobody else was offering. And it was the Royal Bank that were selling it. I think Chris Clark, the trustee in bankruptcy, so Greg took me in to see him, and luckily he was a Queen's grad, and like your kids, and he worked for Deloitte at that time. And so Sheila, I took Sheila and Brit, two of my kids who are Queen's grads, wore a Queen's tie to which I was not entitled, and they wore their Queen's tams, and we did a Queen's yell as we went in the door, and he broke down and sold it to us.
How long before you saw that ad in the Globe and Mail on this Toronto portfolio did you vision entering into the Toronto market? Was it something before that ad that
we always have to have new fields to conquer, Sam. I can't live without some kind of a challenge. Getting up in the morning is my major challenge now, but in those days I always looking for one slightly greener field. And Toronto, of course, is the center of the universe, as you and I know.
Absolutely, it is.
So we had to be here, and then there was another 900 package that came on right on top of that one. So, and my son Brit came down here. Meantime, my son Sandy was building new buildings in Kingston, so then we had a sort of a three-pronged attack going, which is good sound tactics from my military background. And so Toronto then gradually came up. When Elf and Francine came on board, Francine started raising unlimited amounts of money, God knows how, and Elf would go out and find buildings, beautiful buildings, dirt cheap, and before I knew it, he'd bought about 20,000 more buildings or 20,000 more units than I'd ever hoped to have. So, and Francine had always found the money
Teamwork.
for them. And
Teamwork.
Scott would actually make them work. We'd buy something with 20% vacant, and Scott would just wave his magic wand over them, and suddenly they're full. You have a few magicians on your team too, I know.
Well, it's all about teamwork, and absolutely that is the biggest asset we have is our team and our people. And talking about teamwork and what does the team think today about interest rates? Because things have changed, and we're seeing interest rates that we may have never seen before, other than I don't know what interest rates were in the 30s, and
never,
even
no.
if you would even.
I don't think in my lifetime, I don't think they've ever been this low. But some of the heights, I recall that in the late 80s, when the bottom fell out,
Right.
interest was running way up. And I was building a couple of buildings with tears in my eyes on Ontario Street in Kingston. And a developer named Morris Rollins from Belleville, who was quite a large, successful developer, came to me and said, here's a set of plans, Brit, do you want to buy that great lot where the locomotive works used to store their metal? I have a building permit. I have all the plans that you're going to need, and I'll take whatever you got. I got to get out of here. I'm paying 14%, and there's no way this will ever be successful. But you seem to have faith because you're doing two others. So I went down to one of my banker duck hunting friends and asked him if I could borrow enough money to buy this property, and we went back a long way into the Army and actually said, well, daylight saving time starts on Saturday, so we're going to have to get up an hour earlier to go duck hunting. But, what about that money? How much you're going to need? I said, whatever. I said, okay, see you at 5:15 on Saturday morning. That was the beauty of the old soldier net, that I could borrow money without any
Well, you
questions.
guys would put your lives up for one another. So not just
yeah.
your word, but your lives were at
I
stake.
like the
for
sound
one
of that.
another.
That's good. No,
So
yeah.
absolutely. When you say something,
The bond of comradeship,
yeah,
yes. All right,
exactly.
thank you, Sam.
It's something today.
Well, you and I have a bond now. We've suffered through the same indignities.
brothers from other mothers.
Yes,
and,
yeah. I like that. Write that down. Sam.
But more respectfully, you're like a father. You really.
Oh, Sam, you're going to make me cry. And it isn't just my hay fever,
really-
all that damn goldenrod out there.
Got to get a little bit of emotion out, and I've always viewed you as a father figure, and
Well,
I've always asked, what if you were me, would you do?
I'd adopt you as my son.
Every time I ask Brit this question, he comes up with a different answer. The first time he answered, I'd buy a ranch. And I don't know if you remember that, but I remember every answer. The second time I asked him the question is, he said, I'd buy a big boat. And it's always a different answer, which it's always great answers. And so it's...
Well, I think our community of interest on this has always been great. I remember Jack Patton from the TD Bank Mortgage Department got us together because you had several thousand units in the west, and I had several thousand units in the east.
Right.
And but you were a public company, and I was private.
Right.
And we just couldn't find an easy way to mesh the oil and vinegar.
That was a long time ago
make
because
salad
it's,
dressing.
because as a public company, it's hard
I
to
missed
talk
the
about
boat.
mergers and.
Oh, yes,
and,
I missed the boat, Sam. I could have been a unit holder in Boardwalk if I'd played my cards right.
Well,
Not a big one, mind you.
I
but-
could have been working for you a long time ago, so
No,
it would have been
no.
an even better honor. And so,
Oh, no, well, I think that we are both in a gentlemanly profession, and you are so generous with your philanthropy that I know enough about your activities that nobody can ever match you.
well, no,
Sam.
you've made one of the most significant contributions to Queens and other community giving. And can you share your thoughts about giving back? Because you have made huge contributions, and Kingston has officially named you as the honorary mayor, father figure.
They gave me a key, but it didn't open anything.
Aficionado, chancellor. Everywhere I go and speak with anybody from Kingston, you are Kingston's role model, and so.
Wow, I should be selling insurance. No, thank you, Sam. You're far too kind. But when you live to be 95, you've obviously got to win a few innings, and I try to keep up with you, and it's a very tough thing to do. And I still go to since I quit practicing law some years ago, they still let me be the executive chairman, and I go in every morning for a meeting with the executive committee when all the decisions are made, and then I nod my head and said, so be it. So I'd like to keep doing it, and I think why I stay alive is that I don't want to miss one of those executive committee meetings. And they'll fire me if I'm not there, I'm sure.
So it's oatmeal in the mornings and keep very busy and volunteer your
Half
time.
a banana.
A half a banana. I forgot the banana. Got to remember the banana. And be very active in
And don't take life too seriously. Don't worry if someone turns you down the mortgage. You probably didn't need the money anyway. So I think that you and I have a unity of purpose in trying to pay back to our communities the money that we've taken out of them by way of rent. And there's a certain quid pro quo there. So my conscience will be a lot easier when I'm on my deathbed if I've given back a little bit. I'm not going to open my veins, mind you, but I might shake my purse upside down on the table.
Well, Brit,
are we agreed on that?
You're
giving back?
Absolutely is what it's all about, and you're way too modest in that anybody, anytime can see the huge improvements and the difference of a homestead community versus other communities. That brand proudly in front of all your residential communities is so well respected and is so challenging to put a brand in front of thousands of residents that can call you and get a hold of us in this day and age and any day and age. You had a phone a long time ago as well, and to be accessible and to be so prominent and public and serve so many thousands of Canadians with such dignified housing, everybody can see the huge investment that you've put back as a team in the homestead communities. And so you've been a leader in that regard for many, many years, and it's an absolute understanding that right from the beginning you've lived and have modeled under that give back right from the start, from when you built your first community. And so it's
that's a very nice thing to say, Scott,
that's a great,
or Sam. And Scott, as Chief Operating Officer, goes out of his way to make sure that our tenants come
you can
first.
see that. You can
We
really see
call ourselves a tenant-oriented company, and we feel that in return for getting these nice rents paid every month, that we should look after them. And I just follow your style on that. And most of our other competitors, so we're not the only angels in the pack.
There are lots of
there are
great
lots-
landlords. Absolutely.
We're all lovely people in
Yeah,
this
we are.
industry. Yeah. Even the money lenders, even the usurers.
Brit, the saying "only the young, good die young" is false, because you certainly are a good man who's proven that saying wrong.
That's because I reformed on my deathbed. And my embalmers did a good job, made me look very lifelike. Thank you, Sam. Is our time up?
No, we just have a couple more, eight more minutes.
Let's each have a drink of water then. Water? What the hell did they give me? Gin? John A. MacDonald would have been drinking gin, wouldn't he?
The one thing that we are missing today is our wine. That's a big love, is wine with lunch.
Yes.
And is that another secret for longevity, is wine? Because it's proven in studies.
As a preservative?
No. As contributing to your health.
Well, I remember in public school, the teacher, who was a very strong abolitionist, came in with a glass of whiskey and a glass of water and 2 worms, and she dropped one worm in each glass, and when the whiskey shriveled up and died, and the one wiggled in the water, and she said, someone said, "What does that tell you, children?" And they said, "If you don't want worms, drink whiskey." I had to tell one joke, damn it.
Let's talk about the future a little bit, and I know how hard it is. Let's go back to this low interest rate. Nobody's really seen it. We're entering into a new chapter of monetary policy with interest rates as low as anybody's memory. How is this going to play out? How do you see low interest rates playing out, and what is your advice to all landlords today about the time we're in today, about the low interest rate environment we're in? What do you see and can advise everybody?
Sam, I'd be very presumptive to say that my opinion is of any value, but after living so long, I've been through many cycles.
Exactly.
So what goes up must come down, and what goes down must eventually go up. So I would anticipate some increase. It has nowhere, it can't go down any, unless we get into deflation. And that is a worry for you and I. If we get into deflation, then our tenants won't be able to pay their rents, and we won't be able to pay our mortgages. CMHC will go broke of redeeming all those loans. You and I will have to get new jobs.
Well, it's lucky you got a law degree.
Well, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
Yes. You got your iron
We
ring?
can work together.
Yes, I have your iron ring on, yeah.
What do you
I
think the
would say-
probabilities of deflation are? Did
I don't
you
know. The
remember it much in
economists
the-
say that the German economists particularly are really worried about it because you can actually buy bonds or sell bonds at a negative rate in Germany, and that is deflation. Mm-hmm. And they're very shrewd business people, so when I read things like that, I worry about deflation.
Do you remember much about the 30s when you were?
Oh, well, I was 10 when I was born in 1920, so
Oh, okay. So
I'm not as old as I look, you know.
so even
The dirty 30s. My father would come home with a basket of turnips that somebody came in and said that he needed a will drawn. He was going to die soon, but he didn't have any money. But my father draw a will for a basket of turnips. So we ate more damn turnips in those days. There was sort of a barter system had to take over from cash because money was so scarce. And I think a lot of lessons were learned in that Great Depression, and governments now
right.
are better equipped to, they actually do employ economists and try to take preventive measures. Predicting the future in the real estate industry, I think I'm going to give up now because all this foreign money coming in. When you and I first started buying buildings or building buildings, we were the only game in town. Practically, there were a few other guys, but
very few.
the Bento, of course, was the big one down in Ottawa, and I admired the way they handled their business. They were a great firm, still are, of course, and I think that's anybody who goes into the business now just can't do it because we went in with very, very little money, you know. Right. Most of it was my wife's grocery money that I used. And nowadays, you would have to have a very large stake and somehow or other establish a line of credit. The game, it's a pretty different game. I'm no longer qualified. In fact, I'm seriously thinking of retiring. So they'll have to find a new chairman for the executive committee. So there you are. That's it. In front of these witnesses, I here declare one of these days I'm going to quit.
But you're still going to attend your volunteer committee meetings.
It isn't volunteer. It's the executive. I do a few volunteer things. Yes, of course. Well, I've always been quite active in a number of things, like the United Way, and this is part of the give back. You and I both do that. Absolutely. We have to, as good citizens. Being a good corporate citizen kind of goes with the territory when you start earning more than $10 an hour.
That's true.
And you and I are well beyond that now.
Yeah.
So I think the whole complexity of life is what makes it interesting to be alive today, that there's all these volunteer things we can do and all the sports we can play and all the beautiful women we can chase. I'm a widower now. Any widows out there anywhere? Preferably over 90.
Brit, we are running out of time.
I thought that might do it.
And so it's such a huge honor to present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award from the Canadian Apartment Conference. And on behalf of everybody, congratulations, Brit. Thank you for the huge inspiration.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you all. I will treasure this with my military cross and my Legion of Honor. So this will be one of my most treasured possessions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. And Scott, will you give me a drive home?
He is such a legend, so humble, and it was very humbling and inspiring, a lifetime opportunity really to share that moment and experiences and conversation. It is going to be a lifetime memory for me. It's and he's always been a huge inspiration and a father figure, a leader, an example of brave when things are not looking good during his war experience, and so many trials that he's proven the human spirit is amazing spirit, and it is embodied in him, and so it's a huge honor to spend that time, and all the time and discussions and lunches we've had together have been lifetime treasures, and that's always going to be one of my personal treasures, is the time I've been so blessed to spend with Brit. Well, his family values are a big inspiration, and his example of leadership with teamwork. That's been a huge example of what we've strived and continue to strive to always be a great team, and a company that realizes their greatest treasure and asset is our people. And that's a huge lesson that we've learned here. Without commitment to one another, like we've heard today from Brit during the war, where everybody risked each other's lives to keep everybody alive. And that is a level of teammanship that is beyond a level of any team that even can be found in the sports field. It's an unbelievable level to aspire to, and to see, and to benefit from that experience. Well, Rob is a Brit Smith in a younger version. Rob's a huge inspiration in our family, and a team leader. And his experience comes from a sports setting. And so if you weren't looking out for your team member, you'd get injured or get hit pretty hard. And so it, again, is a reflection of how great team can be when everybody's working as a team. It's a hard thing to explain until it's truly a team, and everybody truly is looking out for their team and doing what's best for the team. And that's something that is hard to learn unless a person's in that environment and being in the battlefield, like we heard. You're part of that team, live or die part of that team, and that's why that team value came up so strong, and it just confirms how important it is to look after one another. And there's just no better way of leadership. It's looking after the next guy and vice versa, and everything works out, even during war and very difficult situations. Together we can get through anything.